Thank you, Stella, for being here.
Sure. Thanks, Marika. And yeah, I feel like I'm very blessed to be in this position. Um, I've always been curious about a lot of things, and that's why I'm in this field, right? Because that is one of the things that um, is not a requirement, but it helps. It helps you because it can get pretty intense and exciting. Okay, so who among uh, who among you or folks that you know basically have experienced getting hacked? I'm pretty sure that exactly. I'm pretty sure that people here know of someone at least one person who has gotten hacked, especially their social media accounts, right? It's pretty common, unfortunately, especially with this one aunt of mine. Um, she is older. In fact, I think 2 years ago I stopped accepting Facebook friend requests from her. And she's still it keeps on happening. That was 3 accounts ago. Unfortunately, I still have a Facebook account, but that's a story for another time. So we're not going to get into that. This is just one example of why cybersecurity is important. And yes, cybersecurity is a very complex topic. And this is why simplifying it is worth sharing. And when I say simplifying, technically, I think if you talk to any practitioner, they're going to say, no, cybersecurity is definitely not simple because it is very complex. It has so many facets to it. It has so many categories. It's just mind blowing. And that's why there's also a lot of um, job roles that you can get into and a variety of them as well. So that's why it is a very exciting field. But I want to focus today on the things that I feel can simplify the way that you look at cybersecurity based on what I have experienced, the real world experiences that I've had. And that includes, I started out as a help desk person actually. So that was, I think, 20 years ago. And then I became a network engineer. I also did systems administration, Windows administration. So basically, like mostly IT stuff, Linux engineering, cloud engineering, cloud architect. And about 6 years ago, I went into leadership. But a lot of the environments that I've worked on were basically like uh, hybrid, which means it's a combination of on-prem and cloud infrastructure. And cloud security is very, very another topic that is very specific, but also very complex because nowadays a lot of organizations actually want you to have redundant cloud environments. They don't want you to just go to AWS. They want you to go to AWS and Azure or GCP, whatever the case may be. Most organizations, though, prefer hybrid environments, which means you have both on-prem as well as cloud environments. So based on this, the three things that I think are worth um, looking into to simplify the way that you think are number one is your mindset. In terms of cybersecurity or getting hacked, it's not an if, it's a when. Okay, so because of that, your best strategy is to layer your security. What does that mean? We can't lock everything down. There's absolutely no way we can lock everything down. If you do that, it's like living under a rock. And I don't think you want to do that. That's not sustainable. Um, so I'll give an example of layering security. Like if you have a home, normally your first level of security is you have, a door, your front door locked, right? Your back door, the main entrance to your home. Then maybe if you have a bedroom, you want to put a lock on that as well. And then for those that feel that they really need something even more secure, they'll probably like have I don't know, a vault inside their house or maybe inside their home, right? So that's how you layer security in your house. That's the same way in any organization. You want to be able to layer security. However, to do that is not simple. You have to first categorize all of your assets. So, for example, in your home, Like, um, are my Beanie Babies, I have no idea if they still exist, by the way. Um, are these valuable? Where can I put them? Do I put them in my living room, or the main house, or in my bedroom, or in a safe, right? I don't know, maybe your gaming console. Where do you put that to keep it safe? Your big monitor or TV, your laptop, So those are all like things that you have to categorize in terms of where do I put that so that it is relatively safe. And we're not even talking about people from the outside. I'm talking about like people that you live with inside your home. Like if you have a sibling or your parents, will they borrow the things that you have, your assets, and therefore you need to make that decision. Again, these are very simplistic examples, but that's exactly what you do when you are trying to categorize the assets that you have in your organization and how to basically like assign them a level of confidentiality or privacy. That way you can protect them properly. So to do that, the second thing that you have to take into consideration are your tools. There's infrastructure tools, there's detection tools, there's software, there's observability, monitoring, there's access controls, there's policies and governance. There are so many categories of tools, and in fact, it's billions of dollars every single year. So what about this is important? The most important thing that you have to consider with your tools is that because there is a cost tied to them, you have to basically like find out what your use cases are and match those with the tools that you're looking for. Um, why do you need to do that? Why do you have to be very intentional about that? It's because a lot of tools, they basically, like a lot of companies, right? They come up with services that cover everything about cybersecurity, including things that you may not even need. If you just buy the whole package, obviously that means you're gonna have to pay a lot more. But if you are very good at like identifying your use cases, then you can buy only specific parts of that service or that application, and you will be able to save your company a lot more money. So that's another thing that you can do, but also open source tools, like if you just go out, there's a lot of free tools, community-based tools are out there as far as like cybersecurity is concerned. However, you do have to be a little bit more careful because I don't know if you've heard, but recently some of these tools have been hacked. And basically what they did was apparently the repo's owner basically like abandoned it, and then somebody came in and then became the owner and basically put a backdoor in the repo. As soon as people started downloading these packages, they basically had backdoors to them. So I've heard so far of like 2 instances of this in the last 12 months. So I'm pretty sure that's happened before too. It just probably never made the news yet. So you have to be careful about that. Um, and then the third and final thing, as far as I'm concerned, again, is humans. You know, people, everybody, we all know that we are the weakest link as far as security is concerned. Um, which is why no one tool can protect an organization. It is important to prioritize training as well as building teams with diverse backgrounds and perspectives. In other words, if you have an echo chamber and everybody says the same thing and agrees with everything, that is not a good thing to have in a security team. You can't have something like that because you will not be able to identify and basically plan for any potential attack. Just think about it, in terms of like people that attack your organization, right? They have access to AI. They can come up with all sorts of like different scenarios. If you don't use the tools or you don't have that perspective that it's very possible that the attack will be different from the last time, then you are going to be in trouble. So with these three main factors or key factors, as far as I'm concerned, you can now look into all the general tasks that go into cybersecurity. The more I normally like to categorize them into prevention, detection, and managing incidents. And then obviously for all of those three, you're going to have to build compliance as well as governance. Otherwise, you will have a hard time keeping track of all the changes, keeping track of the latest and greatest, So that's what you will end up doing whenever you have if you want a proper cybersecurity practice. Okay, so what's not a secret in cybersecurity is how complex the problems are, right? The things that we solve in cybersecurity are very complex. And to be honest, people that hack you are a lot, like the people that are trying to hack you are in a much better place because they have an advantage because they can try anything, right? But the people that are defending the organization, I'm normally a defender. I try to hack, um, you know, I hack environments, but only as part of my what do you call that? Uh, my learning, like upskilling. And also I do it for fun. But what I'm trying to say is the people that are blue teamers, the people that are trying to defend the organization, they have a lot of rules. And there are a lot of things that they don't know. They don't have access to a lot of things. It's very, very difficult for a blue team person. So if you ever decide whether you want to be the hacker or the person that's defending, I would start with trying to be part of the red team. Try to hack first because that one has a lot more opportunities, and that one, um, the problems there I feel like are not as hard. Defending is so much harder. Um, anyway, having said that, there are a lot of cybersecurity jobs, but with the way that the economy is going on right now, it's not easy to find a job, right? So, what are the things that we can do if you are interested in cybersecurity? Or want to try it out. So the first thing I would do is just ask the question: do I like hacking? Do I like cybersecurity? My first, if you have not gone to tryhackme.org, I would do that. Go to tryhackme.org. That is a website where you can try to hack something. It's free. It's really cool. Um, So I learned that I liked hacking even as a child. I basically used hairpins or paper clips. Yeah, all of that. Yeah, I picked locks. Even as a child, I tried to build. I think one summer I tried to build a unicycle. Yeah, so I like learning. I like learning how things work. I also learned how to make gunpowder I think I was 8. I learned how to make gunpowder. And then finally again, you're 8 years old, you try to make a magic potion out of every single leaf or bark that I could find in my backyard. Luckily, none of them were poisonous because my testers were my younger cousins. So yeah, that was me mixing potions and things of that side. But yes, the tryhackme.org is a way to find out if you are interested in hacking. There is another website that's good that you can look into, like what skills you have, as well as what are the roles that are out there. It's called cyberseek.org. And that website was built out of a collaboration of different organizations that are trying to help fill jobs, cybersecurity jobs, because right now there are a lot of gaps, right? That's why we're trying to, in with Women in Cybersecurity, which is the organization that I'm a part of. What's what we're trying to do? We're trying to hire, promote, retain women in cybersecurity. Another thing you have to consider are certifications. Which certifications are good for you, and training, right? So as a beginner, I feel like beginner certs are good just to let you get the hang of it. But of course, I'm biased. As a network engineer, I believe that learning how the network works, because it's literally it's like finding it's like a map, right? Knowing how the network works, it's like learning how to read a map. And let's say you're about to go on a I don't know, a road trip. You want to know where you're going. That's just like how networking is to cybersecurity. You want to know where you're going. You know where the flow of traffic goes through the digital flow of traffic. This is why if you can get a basic networking cert, that will be really helpful for you. And especially now that with the advent of cloud services, there are a lot of certifications from AWS and GCP and Azure. Those are the 3 main cloud providers. I would start with that as well. And finally, be very active in your local community. Usually, a lot of communities have cyber events. Eventbrite, if you want to find out what's around you, go there. There's a Most cities have a B-sides. So if you just look for B-sides, B-S, just Google B, the letter B, and then sides. There's a lot of free events too. And then obviously Women in Cybersecurity, WICYS, that's WICYS.org. We also have a lot of events. We are, again, we promote and women, but we are inclusive. We accept anybody that is interested. Finally, as far as your social media account is concerned, please, I beg you, use MFA. Use a multi-factor authentication. I know it's a bit annoying, and you're probably saying you don't care if you get hacked. I've seen it, I've heard it. Believe me, it is a big deal when you lose access to your account and some nefarious character is posting horrible things on your account. Yeah, that's, I think I hit my 15 minutes.
Well, I've been trying to write as quickly as I possibly can. Thank God this was recorded because there's a lot of sites we're going to have to, we might follow up with you to get maybe a list of sites that you listed.
Yes.
And I mean, you had talked about the first thing is to be aware, right? And to be cognizant. And then next is to categorize your assets and to kind of understand what you have and organize yourself and make sure that you know all of the accounts in one place, et cetera. Is there something else that you would do after that?
Well, yeah, once you have an inventory and you categorize all of that, then you can now determine what type of uh, tool or what type of security you want to put on that. Like I'll give you an example. If you know, for example, that again, I'm going to use the house because it's super simple. If you think that mm, your Nintendo Switch is like the most important thing in your life, right? You're not going to put that in your living room. You're not going to put that maybe in your bedroom. You're probably going to put it in your safe. So that's again, that's different. So it's not a matter of like this asset requires this type of security or privacy. It's basically like it depends on your use case. It depends on the organization. So yeah, because again, the tools usually that requires tools and resources to protect that asset, right? So because tools and resources are expensive, you want to be very mindful about that whole process.
And there's things that you could do personally to protect your online accounts, including, you know, what are your thoughts on the 1Passwords and the Bitwarden
Yes.
and
Yes.
LastPass, all that?
So my two favorite password managers are 1Password and Bitwarden. Why? Because they have not been hacked in the last 2 years. The rest have been, so that's why I'm like, I can't promote LastPass because it's too soon, right? So maybe if they haven't been hacked and like, you know, again, these are all services, but yes, I would highly recommend managed password. A lot of them are free, so you shouldn't have too many problems, you know, getting one. And again, having a tool is better than no tool.
Yeah. And so I know that if anybody on the call has a question, by the way, just feel free to put it in the chat. But from the perspective of someone who may have interest in going into cybersecurity, I know that even from a computer science or from a data perspective, data and cybersecurity are hand in hand. I mean, protecting the data is so important, especially in healthcare. Like, what would so you mentioned one, try to go and join the hack, or to be a hacker, go and join webinars and so forth to see if it's something that you like. Do you have are there a set of skills that you really need, both the soft skills or the brain skills versus
Yeah.
the technical
So
skills?
So believe it or not, you're absolutely right. Thank you for bringing that up. The most important thing is like the skill that you need, the most important skill that you need is your ability to learn new things. Because I'm sure you know this, but as you learn, whatever you're learning right now is already obsolete, or it's no longer the latest and greatest, right? So you have to be ready to constantly upskill. Like as far as I'm concerned, I try to take a certification like once or twice a year, just so I can like keep my brain fresh, because things are changing all the time. So yeah, that's the most important thing in my opinion. Obviously, all the other skills are important too, but if you are not ready to learn new things, if you're the type of person that doesn't want to try new things, as far as like as far as like the tech world is concerned, then yeah, you're gonna be in trouble. You're muted, I think.
So Tony, I think you have your hand up. Do you have a quick question?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, what are the so like 10 years ago, it's a lot about network package management and like the network logging and debugging those packet transmissions, right? Now, right now, there's lots of like GUI software to track and log those packets as well as collect the data to do like non-linear analysis with. What is the latest and cutting edge, or is there something that's cutting edge, supposed to be cutting edge in terms of security skills required? Because from what I know, most cybersecurity engineers rarely have to code. That
Go ahead.
is, I was just wondering what the next
Yeah.
skill
So
would be required.
if you want to go into cybersecurity, that's a fair question. So if you want to go into cybersecurity, you're right. Most organizations, if you get a a typical corporate job, whether it's a big company or a startup, most companies will have a tool. And as a cybersecurity engineer, you will be learning how to use that tool primarily. However, like all tools, not all of them are going to cover your use case. And that is why it is important for you, like I said again, it's important for you to be able to like be interested in learning new things, because one of the things that you will eventually might have to do is create custom scripts to basically like add to the tool, because the tool's use case doesn't include it. And I'll give you an example. Python is probably, if you want to go to cybersecurity, the number one programming language that you should be that you should have in your back pocket is Python. And why? Because it is really easy. It's very compatible with a lot of cybersecurity tools. A specific example of using a custom script, for example, is okay. So in AWS, there are a lot of tools already like that take care of the security of the infrastructure. They have a service called Security Hub, and literally all it does is it picks up all the logs, whether it's your all application log, network log, it picks up all of that, and it basically like based on the machine learning that they have in the back end, they send you warnings and they give you recommendations. Oh, this, for example, your VPC or your security group, which is your firewall rule, is not secure enough. It has port 22, which is SSH open from the whole world. So that's a typical like not against best practices, because you don't want the whole world to basically like be able to SSH to your servers or to your environments, right? So, however, one of the things that they do not have is the fact that is they don't take into consideration that asset or that VM that has that security group open, it also doesn't have a public IP, which means it just means that if somebody can SSH into that particular instance, they will need to be from the internal network. So in theory, that's really not as big a deal because now you're not talking about the whole world, right? So that's one example, for example, where you can code, you can create a script that basically like brings down all of that. And if it says port 22, and then maybe you can like do another like Python script that like uh, basically like takes a look at all of your VMs or all your EC2 instances and check if they have a public IP. Then you can like correlate those two queries and basically come up with an updated finding, which basically says, oh yeah, it's not a critical finding, but it's maybe a medium finding. I'm just giving an example. Another example that's related to that is if you pay the extra money, you can buy CrowdStrike, for example, which is the most popular tool right now, and I'm sure you've heard of it. But they have in their machine learning something like that already, as well as Wiz. I think it's another tool that does infrastructure, but they already will do that for you. You don't have to build that script anymore.
Yeah.
CrowdStrike.
Yeah,
Oh
I heard
no,
about
they're
CrowdStrike.
yeah. Oh no, they're still super popular in spite of all of that. They're probably just gonna pay people like pay the organizations that lost money that day. But yeah, if you were
So
flying that day, I'm sure you don't like them at all.
I have one more question. This is more with my personal project. I was wondering if there are like, what's the best practice to overcome or bypass API limits without emulating a DDoS attack on their API server?
Yeah, I don't have the answer to that, Tony. That's a good
Is
question.
do I
Yeah.
like use CDNs or like do proxy requests and like route
It,
VPNs? Because
it really depends on the environment that you're trying to like connect to, right? It depends on the threshold that they allow. So a lot of like environments, especially like the ones that are not, they don't really have a lot of redundancy built into their application. They actually will limit, yeah, the API number of API requests. But the
there's
ones that have redundancy,
not
yeah,
even just the API. There's certain ways I could get data using bots and like browser automations. But
yeah,
even then, they sort of they
yeah,
still detect like the number of traffic and
right,
requests with those
yes.
bots.
Yep. Yeah. So I don't know if you've heard of Akamai, that's our
Ah,
CloudFront. Yeah, those are CDNs, content distribution network managers, or basically they're applications that allow the organization to throttle anyone that's trying to scrape their sites. So I think
oh.
in one company, they allowed 1 hour from one IP. Uh, that's what they did. Then after an hour, they cut them off. Another company,
Did,
which was smaller, they only allowed 10 minutes. So,
oh. Because
right.
I have a friend also with my personal project where I need like real time data and I don't want to pay like $30,000 just for the service. And I'm trying to figure out a
Yeah,
way to overcome and like bypass the API rate limit and then still get my data.
I mean, the obvious answer, but it's not always legal, is if you have access to several computers, then you can do it that way. You know,
Can't I like
I,
mask my IP requests and headers and then like pretend I'm several computers to
you can but if their application is not configured properly, I mean, you can get away with that, but if their application is configured properly, they're not going to let that happen either.
Hmm. So
So
there's no best practice, it's like trial and error.
no, the best practice is to pay for the data, unfortunately. Remember, data is king. So but I don't,
Okay.
it's a common problem, Tony, and that's why a lot of organizations, instead of figuring out how to like build data, they literally use their own production data and then they export it, into, well, first they clean it up, right? They remove all of the confidential information or PII from their data, and then they dump into their UAT or their non-prod. and then they use that.
Mm.
So that's a typical, that's a common way to do it. But yeah, building or coming up with relevant and you can probably reach out to, I don't know, I'm pretty sure Google, because I remember there was one time when I was looking into that too. They have data sets that they allow folks to have access to. You might want to go
No,
check them out.
yeah, no, I need the real-time data. The like
Ah.
I'm trying to do stock predictions, and I need the like
Ah.
right at that point.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
suggestion then would be to target a smaller data set, because you just want to prove that your application works, right? It
It
doesn't
works.
have
It
to.
works.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that it doesn't have to be like, you don't have to basically go through, like, chug through a ton of data, right? So maybe if you can find like a smaller data set,
Right.
then maybe you can, though maybe that company doesn't really care if you like hit it, and then maybe they don't even have a CDN, maybe they don't know they use Akamai. So you can try
Cool.
that.
Thanks. I'll try that. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Sorry, I have a question. I couldn't raise up my hand.
Sure.
Yeah, so I was wanted to ask, what would you say would be the key difference skills needed for like infrastructure security and application security?
So infrastructure means, like, I'm an infrastructure person. So you need to be able to like do all sorts of infrastructure. Like, for example, a typical infrastructure right now, to have some redundancy. Like I think I mentioned earlier, they'll require you to learn on-prem as well as cloud environments. So you need to be able to be more flexible, right? And then as far as security is concerned, that's just like a gamut of anything. That's like when you go into security or cybersecurity, that's just like you have no clue what's going to happen. So you're just going to be wide open. Like I said, the only key thing you need to be able to do is to be ready to learn new things and and absolutely like embrace that, because in security, it's like you can't plan for anything. And then finally, you mentioned the application security. What was that?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So for application security, it's a little bit more focused depending on, what company you work for. It will usually be limited to either the tool that they use or their whatever programming language of their favorite programming language at that time that you join. So it's a little bit more regimented and standardized.
Okay. Because for infrastructure, I can understand this firewall, XDR, threat analysis, and stuff like that. But when I mean like application, I'm talking about like software websites security, because I don't really have like experience in that at all. And I spoke to someone recently that has like experience in like software development security in
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
just like two different worlds in terms of
Yeah, no. So the thing is, so if you are if you're doing like SLC, you're doing like software development, and you're talking about security of that, is that what you're
yeah,
asking?
yeah,
Yeah. So in that case, right, a lot of that, for example, when you build software, a lot of those are dependent on packages that are outside, like especially if you're doing web development, right? And
yeah.
you're trying to build an application that I don't know, that sorts like a whole data set so that it's sorted by, I don't know, by I'm just making up stuff right now, by the most recent versus the oldest, right? So if you, for example, you're coming up with something like that, if you are going to build software, you usually, most companies, unless they pay for an actual like tool that does exactly that, usually they build code from open source. So what does that mean? When you are relying on open source code, you're going to have to make sure that that code is secure. So part of your process, part of your pipeline, your CI/CD pipeline, will include making sure that all the code that you're pulling up is secure. And there are tools for that. You can also automate that. There's also tools, and again, You can do it two ways. You can like do it the hard way, which is build your own tool that does that, or you can rely on tools that are already there. And again, it depends how much you want to pay. But yes, that's part of it. Application security includes that. Just when you're building the software, you also want to be able to scan your, for example, if you have a website, a web application, you want to be able to scan it from the outside to make sure that there are no vulnerabilities that are tied to that, because it's not just your application, right? It's all the other layers that are like, is it your database, right? Are you using a database? Is there any vulnerability to that? So you also need to be able to scan it from the outside. So yeah, there's also, yeah, so there are different ways of scanning that too. So yeah, there's a ton of things that you can do as far as like taking care of application security.
Okay. So when you say scan, it's basically the same way we scan like IP addresses and in-house applications, stuff like that. Yeah.
Yes. If you're interested, take a look at Burp Suite.
Come again?
Burp Suite.
Okay. Okay.
BURPSUITE. Take a look at that. It's a very good dynamic. They have a couple of application security use cases. I've used in the past. It's very popular. They have a very good developer portal. They're based in the UK though, so if you do have support, you have to wait 12 hours before they respond to you, which is
All right.
fine.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. Thanks.
sure.
Any other questions for Stella? I guess, Stella, what would be, one of the questions, what would be your advice to someone who's interested in going into cybersecurity? Well, actually, now I just created another question. Both one from a perspective of a student that has recently graduated and is going into their master's or some graduate school education. And then also for someone who is trying to figure out if they want to specialize, with in their master's, what you would specialize in based on the trends that you see today.
Yeah, I mean, cybersecurity also includes machine learning and AI, right? So they go hand in hand. So if you like those things, I would definitely take a look at cybersecurity. But like anything in tech, I'm just gonna say there is no job right now that isn't what is the term I'm looking for? That isn't considered volatile, right? I mean, I feel like that's everywhere right now, but especially tech, right? But yeah, so I would go back to tryhackme.org because the minimum requirement, if you want to be happy in cybersecurity, is that constant like need to like learn how things work. If you have that curiosity built into you, it will help you a lot because cybersecurity can be intense. It can actually like burn you out. Burnout is a very common theme in cybersecurity because it can, like I said, it can be intense. I mean, just think about it. I think the last time I've been through a really, I worked on a live hack was we were there was a one of our clients. I was working for a managed service company, and we had just helped them build out their website. And basically, they didn't give us a lot of time. They basically told us, "Oh yeah, by the way, in 2 days we are going to come up with with an event, and people are going to buy tickets from our site." I can't remember what the name of the client was, but it was a ticket sales website. And then they're like, yeah, we need you to help us because the last time we did it, it crashed. So we think somebody's trying to like basically like hack us on that day, right? So we did. We showed up that day that they had the ticket sales, and we found out, and it did crash. The site went down for maybe about 5-10 minutes, and that's a lot of money, right? When it goes down, even if it's only 5-10 minutes, that's a lot of tickets that they can't sell during those 5-10 minutes. Turned out 60% of the traffic was coming from their own internal tools. At the same time that people were buying tickets, they were constantly like pinging their own site and checking, hey, how many tickets have been sold? Hey, who are the people that have bought it so far? They had all of those things running in, hitting the same set of servers that were selling the tickets. So they were basically like DDoSing their own website. And that's all it took is we looked at the traffic. They're like, yeah, it looks like you're DDoSing yourself. So we basically we recommended a very minor change, which was when you run the tools, you run it on a separate cluster that isn't live. I'm pretty sure if it's an extra minute or 5 minutes behind the live data, you're going to be fine. And that worked for them. So, but yeah, things like that. It's like, if that type of thing interests you, right? It's good, but at the same time, when you're in the middle of that, just you're seeing all these people, all these things, all these servers getting hacked. It can be pretty intense and very stressful. Because I like these types of things, when something gets hacked, I immediately just get so excited. I know it's kind of like messed up, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe they did that. How did they do that? That's pretty awesome. That's my initial reaction.
Thanks. Any other questions? Well, Stella, it's been awesome to have you today. Thank you so much. And